I'm Janet Prey from Islander Sewing Systems, and I'm here today to show you how to do some really slick mitering techniques. I'm going to start right now with the single miter. So when you start with a single miter, and I want to also tell you that Islander Sewing Systems is no pins, no basting, so I'm not going to be using any pins here, and I think you're really going to like this tip. So you're going to start out with your basic project, whatever you want to miter the square corner, and then you're going to take it to the ironing station and press it up. In this case, I've pressed it up 1 inch, and you'll see that I've created these nice fold lines, and those are really going to help us when we go to miter this. So after you've pressed it up like this, then you're going to do one more pressing. And that's when we're going to take this and fold the corner in at an angle until the creases intersect, so they're matched right up on both sides. Then just take this project to the iron and then just press it. And when I say press it, I mean just tap it with the iron. Don't rub the iron back and forth. Because what we've done now is we've just created the line we're going to sew on. So what you're going to do now is we're going to fold this corner at just like this. And this is the seam we want to sew on. Don't be mistaken and sew on the original crease. It's that last crease that you made you're going to stitch on. And we're going to stitch down to exactly 1/4 inch from the raw edge. So here we go. Now I'm going to start just ahead of the fold. I'm going to put my needle down, and if you would like, you can also chalk that line, that fold, so you can see it really well. If you have any difficulty seeing it, go ahead and do that first. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to back into that fold, and that's really important. You just get a much better stitch and you don't stretch that out. And we're going to come right up and just stop precisely at 1/4 inch from the raw edge and reverse again. Now you see, we've stitched this. I have a little loop here. Let me just clip that off. All right, so we've stitched right up to the 1/4 inch. And now I'm going to trim the seam allowance. And generally when I'm making these, I will take it to the ironing station and press this little seam open on my point presser. Now let me just show you how quick and easy this is. We're going to flip this around using a chopstick, anything pointy. This is a nice little point turner that you can get at any sewing department store. And now you see that we have a nice, perfect little corner. Of course, it's going to be, really nice and sharp once we get that pressed. And because we stopped at 1/4 inch from the edge, now we have an edge to turn under. And what we'll do is we'll just turn that edge under and top stitch it down. And this would make a nice technique for, say, a napkin or a table runner, something like that, a single piece of fabric that is good on both sides, and then you just turn that 1/4 inch under and go all the way around, and you're done. And you have a perfect mitered corner. Okay, so that's our single miter, really easy. Now we're going to do a double miter. And what you use a double miter technique for is oftentimes around a quilt. Anything that you want to bind. It's often used in garments as well for a really nice trim technique. And here you'll see on the table, I've done some reversible placemats. And with the reversible placemat, you just cut a chunk of pre-quilted fabric, and you'll see it's got a different look on each side. And then you cut a binding according to the width that you want to bind around the edges. And then we're going to double miter all 4 corners and stitch around it. So here quickly how that's done. Again, just like with the single miter, we've pressed up 1 inch all the way around because I know that's the width that I want to cover. Now, when you access our website, you're going to see the directions and the formula to do it on any width. So don't be concerned you can't use this on a narrower or wider width. Certainly we're going to give you the information on how to do that. So what I've done is I've pressed that up, and I've actually taken a little marker and marked that line in there because that's exactly where I want to stitch. Then I've taken my binding and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've marked that as well just to keep myself accurate. Now when I first start out, I'm just going to tack this down a few stitches. So I want to get that seam allowance lined up so that I feel that 1/4 inch is right on top of that fold where I'm going to stitch. And we're going to come back over this because we'll go all the way around our project. But in this case, I'm just going to show you one corner. And I'm not going to come down too far, and I'm going to stop and take it out of the machine. All right. Now, we've pre-pressed this binding in half. And so now we're just going to fold it in half. And right here where we see the intersection of that 1 inch fold, we're going to make a clip that is exactly 1/4 inch deep. So I like to mark it just so I know I'm accurate, because accuracy is important in this technique. So I'm going to just clip that. You need a nice sharp pair of scissors like these. They work really nice. They've got a nice point on them. And you're going to clip right up to that mark. Now I'm going to come down 2.5 inches from that mark. And again, this is part of the formula. And depending on the width of your binding will depend on how far down you're going to come. But again, we're going to give you all that information. 1/4 inch. So I'm going to clip this one. All right. Now, before we go back to continue sewing this around, we're going to create our mitered corner. And the way we do that is right sides together of the binding, and we're going to match up these clips. I hope you can see that. And on both sides, those clips are going to match. And the objective here is to sew from the edge of that clip right up to this point right here, and then back to the edge of that clip again. Now, if you need to, you can chalk that line. Just get a little ruler like this, and you can just mark that line, and then there's no guesswork. I know people that sew often and do this technique that don't need to make that mark, but for your first time or you don't do it very often, it's a really great idea to mark that. So now I'm just going to start at the clip. Definitely, this is a stress point, so you definitely want to seal that stitch. You can either do a fixed stitch or a reverse. And then we're going to come right down to that point and turn. Now we just need to go down, stay on that stitching line, and stop precisely at that clip. Now we need to trim away this seam allowance really quickly. I'm going to have to come back down here. Go back over where I started. Now when we get down here, we're going to turn the corner, so you're going to come right up to where you made the clip, stop, pick up the foot, turn the corner, okay, that's far enough. I'm just going to quickly pull this out and show you how that all works. And again, we're going to need to do some pressing and everything before this is going to look its very best. But I think you're going to get the idea real quick here that this pops around here. And again, same as we did with the single miter, we can turn that edge under 1/4 of an inch and stitch it down. But the beauty on this one is that we're going to have this same thing on both sides. And that's single and double miter. I hope you enjoy it.